I stood at gate 43, watching the plane taxi down the runway. My family was on that aircraft, headed to Hawaii. I was not. In my right hand, I clutched a crumpled note my sister Rachel had left on the bench beside me. The words were scrawled in her handwriting. "Babysit Sophie, you'll have fun together," followed by a smiley face. My 6-year-old niece Sophie gripped my leg with both arms, her face pressed against my jeans. "Where did Mommy go?" she asked, her voice cracking. My phone screen lit up with 17 missed calls from the airline about my checked luggage flying to Hawaii without me. I guided Sophie away from the gate, her small hand clasped in mine. She kept twisting around, searching for her mother in the crowd. The airport cafe seemed like the best option to calm her down and figure out what to do next. I ordered her a hot chocolate and myself a black coffee I desperately needed. "When is Mommy coming back?" Sophie asked again, her brown eyes welling up. "Soon, sweetheart," I lied, having no idea when or if Rachel planned to return for her own daughter. I pulled out my phone and called Rachel. The call went straight to a generic voicemail message. Blocked. I tried again. Same result. My chest tightened. I called my mother Patricia. Blocked. My father Gregory. Blocked. My brother Troy. Blocked. Even my Aunt Linda, who had organized this whole family vacation, had blocked my number. Every single one of them. Sophie started crying harder, drawing stares from other travelers. I tried to comfort her, but I was drowning in my own panic. This wasn't some miscommunication or accident. They had planned this. They had deliberately left me behind with Sophie, blocked all communication, and boarded that plane like it was nothing. Then it hit me worse. Sophie's small backpack sat beside her chair. I unzipped it, searching for anything useful. Coloring books, a stuffed rabbit, some snacks. No medication. My stomach dropped. "Sophie, do you take any medicine?" I asked gently. She nodded. My puffer. For when I can't breathe good, her asthma inhaler. Rachel had left it at home, or maybe she had it with her in Hawaii. Either way, Sophie was without it. 2 airport security officers approached our table. The older one, a woman with graying hair, looked at Sophie's tear-streaked face, then at me. "Sir, is everything all right here?" she asked, her tone professional but suspicious. "Yes, I'm her uncle. There's been a family situation," I explained, trying to sound calm. "Can I see your identification? And do you have any documentation showing your relationship to this child?" My face burned as other travelers openly stared. I fumbled for my wallet, produced my driver's license. The officers examined it, asked for Sophie's full name, asked her if she knew me. She nodded yes, called me Uncle Bedford, but she was so upset that even her confirmation seemed uncertain. For 15 humiliating minutes, I stood there explaining the situation, while passengers whispered and took out their phones. Finally satisfied, the officers left, but the damage was done. I felt like a criminal. Back at the table, I opened my social media apps. My blood turned to ice. Rachel had posted a photo 2 hours ago. She was at a resort poolside, cocktail in hand, my parents and Troy behind her making faces at the camera. The caption read, "Finally on vacation, Bedford's babysitting," with 3 laughing emojis. The comments were full of family, friends, and relatives, adding their own laughing emojis. They were celebrating, abandoning me. I scrolled through my feed with shaking hands. Aunt Linda had shared Rachel's post with the comment, "Poor Bedford, stuck with kid duty. Maybe he'll learn to be less selfish." More laughing emojis. Less selfish? I had refused to babysit Sophie exactly 3 times in the past 6 months, because I had work commitments and my own life. That made me selfish enough to deserve this? My work email notification chimed. Then, another. Then, 5 more, in rapid succession. I opened the app, and my heart sank further. There was an emergency at the office. A major client was threatening to pull their contract. My boss needed me in a meeting first thing Monday morning. It was Friday afternoon. Even if I could get a flight back home, I was supposed to be in Hawaii for the next 10 days. My projects would be in chaos. I looked at Sophie, who had finally stopped crying and was sipping her hot chocolate with shaking hands. She looked so small and confused. This wasn't her fault. She was the victim here, as much as I was. Then I remembered Daniel Brooks, Rachel's ex-husband. They had divorced 2 years ago, after a brutal custody battle. Rachel had painted him as unstable, irresponsible, a bad father. The whole family had rallied around her, testifying against him in court. He had been granted minimal visitation rights, seeing Sophie only every other weekend under supervised conditions. But I had always liked Daniel. He had been kind to me during the 5 years he was married to Rachel. After the divorce, I had run into him twice at the grocery store. Both times he had asked about Sophie with genuine love in his eyes. He had seemed hurt, not dangerous. I had always suspected Rachel exaggerated his flaws to win the custody battle. Now, sitting in this airport cafe with a traumatized 6-year-old, abandoned by my entire family, I made a decision. I called Daniel. He answered on the second ring. "Hello? Daniel. It's Bedford, Rachel's brother." A pause. "Bedford? Is everything okay? Is Sophie all right?" The genuine concern in his voice confirmed what I had always suspected. He was a good father. "Sophie is physically fine, but no, everything is not okay." I explained the situation, my voice steady despite my rage. The airport, the note, the blocked numbers, the social media posts. Daniel's breathing grew heavy on the other end. "She left Sophie at the airport? She abandoned our daughter?" "Yes." "Where are you right now?" "Still at the airport. Gate 43 area, in the cafe." "I'm 3 hours away. I'm leaving right now. Stay with Sophie. Keep her safe. I'll be there as soon as I can." "Daniel, there's something else you should know. Sophie doesn't have her inhaler." He swore under his breath. "I have a spare at my place. She'll be okay until I get there unless she has an attack. Does she seem like she's breathing okay?" I watched Sophie. She was coloring now, her breathing normal. "Yes, she seems fine." "Good. Bedford, I can't thank you enough for calling me. This is exactly the kind of thing I've been trying to tell the courts about. Rachel is not a responsible parent. She puts herself first. Always. I'm starting to see that. Listen, this is technically child abandonment. Rachel could lose custody over this. But I need evidence. I need witnesses. Are you willing to testify to what happened here today?" The question hung in the air. If I said yes, I would be going to war with my entire family. If I said no, I would be protecting people who had just betrayed me in the cruelest way possible while letting Sophie stay with a mother who could leave her at an airport. "Yes," I said. "I'll testify." "Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll see you in 3 hours." Daniel arrived at the airport exactly 2 hours and 47 minutes after our call. I saw him before Sophie did. He was a tall man, with dark hair starting to gray at the temples, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. His eyes scanned the cafe frantically until they landed on us. "Daddy!" Sophie's scream of joy echoed through the terminal. She leaped from her chair and ran to him. Daniel dropped to his knees and caught her, wrapping his arms around his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. Tears streamed down his face. "Baby girl, I missed you so much," he whispered into her hair. Watching them, I knew I had made the right choice calling him. Daniel stood, holding Sophie on his hip, and extended his free hand to me. "Bedford, I can't ever repay you for this." "You don't need to," I said, shaking his hand. "This is wrong what Rachel did, to Sophie and to you." We sat down together. Sophie stayed, glued to Daniel's side, holding his hand like she was afraid he might disappear. Daniel pulled out his phone and showed me documents, court papers, custody agreements, violation reports he had filed. "Look at this," he said, scrolling through dates. "Rachel was supposed to let me have Sophie for my birthday last month. She claimed Sophie was sick. I asked for a doctor's note. She never provided one. The month before that, she said Sophie had a school event. The school confirmed there was no event that day. She's been systematically denying me time with my daughter and lying to the courts about it. Why hasn't the judge done anything? Because Rachel is very good at playing the victim, and your family backs her up. Your mother testified that I was emotionally volatile. Your father said I had anger management issues. Neither of those things is true. I've never raised my voice to Sophie. I've never been anything but loving. But they lied under oath, and the judge believed them. Guilt twisted in my stomach. I hadn't testified at the custody hearing. I had been traveling for work, but I had believed my family's version of events. I had assumed Daniel must have done something to deserve such harsh judgment. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have questioned their story." "You're questioning it now. That's what matters." Daniel looked down at Sophie, who was falling asleep against his shoulder. "Bedford, there's an emergency custody hearing I can file for. With your testimony about today, about Rachel abandoning Sophie, I have grounds. But I need you to be there. Monday morning. Are you still willing?" I thought about my work emergency, my boss expecting me Monday morning. I thought about my family, who had just destroyed my vacation and humiliated me. I thought about Sophie, innocent in all of this. "Yes, I'll be there." Daniel's face flooded with relief. "Thank you. Let me give you my address so you can come to the hearing." We exchanged information. Daniel carried sleeping Sophie toward the parking garage. I had called a rideshare to take me back to my apartment since my car was in long-term parking for a trip I wasn't taking. The driver dropped me off at my building just after 9 at night. I climbed the stairs to my second-floor apartment, exhausted and emotionally drained. Inside, I collapsed on my couch and stared at my phone. 43 new messages. My mother Patricia had called 12 times. My brother Troy left 6 voicemails. Rachel sent 15 texts. Aunt Linda chimed in with her opinions. Even cousins I barely spoke to were messaging me. I opened my mother's messages first. "Bedford, what have you done? Call me immediately. How could you betray your sister like this? You had no right to call Daniel." I moved to Troy's voicemails. His voice was angry, threatening. "You better fix this, Bedford. You just ruined Rachel's life. If you testify against her, you're dead to this family. Dead. Do you understand me?" Rachel's texts were worse, screaming in all caps, accusing me of destroying her family, calling me names I won't repeat. The last message said, "You kidnapped my daughter. I'm pressing charges." My hands started shaking. I tried to call my mother back to explain what had really happened. The call wouldn't connect. I tried my father. Same thing. I checked my settings and realized what had happened. Now they had all unblocked me, but only so they could bombard me with attacks. When I tried to defend myself, they wouldn't answer. A text came through from my mother. "We were coming back for Sophie tomorrow. It was a joke to teach you a lesson about being selfish. You overreacted, and now you've involved Daniel, who is dangerous. You kidnapped Sophie by calling him without permission. Rachel could have you arrested." A joke? They were calling child abandonment a joke? I typed back. "You left a 6-year-old at an airport without her medication. You blocked my calls. You posted about it on social media, mocking me. That's not a joke." My father responded this time. "You're dead to us." I stared at those words. Dead to us. My entire life, I had tried to be a good son, a good brother. I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, showed up for family events. And because I protected a child they abandoned, I was now dead to them. Another text from Rachel. "My lawyer will be contacting you. You interfered with my custody arrangement. You committed a crime." I felt sick. I had done the right thing. I knew I had. But my family was twisting the narrative, making me the villain. They were claiming their cruelty was a joke, that I had overreacted, that I was the problem. This was gaslighting. I recognized it now. They were rewriting reality to make themselves look innocent and me look crazy. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Rachel's attorney, Thomas Klein. I represent your sister in this matter. You are hereby ordered to cease all contact with Daniel Brooks and to recant any statements you made regarding the events of today. Failure to comply will result in legal action for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. You have 24 hours to respond. I couldn't breathe. They were serious. Rachel was actually coming after me with lawyers. I called Daniel. He answered immediately. Bedford? What's wrong? I explained everything. The texts, the threats, the lawyer's message. Daniel was quiet for a moment. They're trying to intimidate you. They know what they did was wrong, and they're scared. Bedford, you need your own lawyer. I have a good one. His name is Frank Morrison. He handled my divorce. He's expensive, but he's worth it. How expensive? $5,000 retainer. I felt the number like a punch to the gut. I had some savings, but that would wipe out a huge chunk of them. Still, what choice did I have? Send me his information, I said. I will. And Bedford? Don't respond to any of them. Not a single message. Everything you say can be used against you. Let your lawyer handle it. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's text. You're dead to us. Monday morning arrived too fast. I dragged myself out of bed and got dressed in my best suit. Not for work, for court. I had called my boss over the weekend and explained the situation. He had been understanding but concerned. Now there were complaints about me circulating at the office. I walked into the building at 8:30, and my boss called me into his office before I even reached my desk. Bedford, sit down. My boss, Gerald, was normally a friendly man. Today his expression was serious. I received a phone call Friday afternoon from someone claiming to be your mother. She said you had a mental health crisis at the airport, and that you're currently unstable and possibly dangerous. She suggested we give you time off for psychiatric evaluation. My jaw dropped. That's not true. None of that is true. I figured as much, which is why I'm talking to you, instead of sending you straight to HR. But I need to know what's actually going on. I explained everything. The airport, Sophie, the abandonment, my decision to call Daniel, the custody hearing happening today. Gerald listened without interrupting. So your family is retaliating because you protected your niece? Yes. He sighed heavily. Bedford, I believe you. But I have to be honest. This is creating a problem. If your mother is willing to call your workplace with false information, what else might she do? We can't have instability affecting our operations. I understand. I'm handling it. I hired a lawyer. This will be resolved. I hope so. For now, focus on getting through today. But be aware that HR may want to speak with you. I left his office feeling like the ground was crumbling under my feet. My professional reputation, something I had spent years building, was being destroyed by lies. At my desk, I tried to focus on emails, but my mind kept drifting to the hearing at 2 that afternoon. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Bedford, this is Frank Morrison, your attorney. Daniel gave me your contact information. I've reviewed the basics of your situation. Please come to my office at noon. We need to prepare your testimony. Address below. Frank's office was downtown in a modern glass building. His receptionist led me to a conference room where Frank waited. He was a man in his 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that assessed me carefully. Bedford, thank you for coming. Let's talk about what you can expect today. For the next 90 minutes, Frank prepared me. He explained court procedures, how to answer questions, how to stay calm under pressure. He reviewed the airport security footage he had already subpoenaed, and the note Rachel had left. He showed me the social media posts my family had made. This is strong evidence, Frank said. But you need to understand that Rachel's lawyer will attack you. They'll try to make you look vindictive, unstable, anything to discredit your testimony. Stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't elaborate. Don't get emotional. I'll try. Don't try. Do it. Sophie's future depends on this. We arrived at the courthouse at 1:45. Daniel was already there with Sophie, who brightened when she saw me. Uncle Bedford! The courtroom was smaller than I expected. The judge, a woman named Margaret Torres, entered at exactly 2 o'clock. Rachel sat on the opposite side with her lawyer, Thomas Klein, the same man who had threatened me over text. Rachel's eyes burned with hatred when she looked at me. The hearing began. Daniel's lawyer presented the case for emergency custody modification based on abandonment. Frank played the airport security footage for the judge. It clearly showed Rachel and my entire family walking past Sophie and me toward the gate, Rachel glancing back once, then boarding without her daughter. It showed me discovering the note. It showed Sophie crying. Judge Torres's expression darkened as she watched. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand, was sworn in, and sat down. Daniel's lawyer asked me to describe the events of Friday afternoon in my own words. I did, carefully and factually. And what did the note say? The lawyer asked. It said, "Babysit Sophie. You'll have fun together," with a smiley face. Did you agree to babysit Sophie that day? No. I had no prior knowledge or agreement. What happened when you tried to contact your family? Every single member had blocked my phone number. The lawyer showed the social media posts to the judge. Rachel's face turned red. Thank you, Bedford. No further questions. Then Thomas Klein stood, Rachel's lawyer. He approached me with a predatory smile. Mr. Bedford, isn't it true that you have a troubled relationship with your sister? No. Isn't it true that you refused to help her with childcare on multiple occasions? I declined to babysit when I had work commitments. Yes. So you harbor resentment toward your sister for asking you to help with your niece? No. I love my niece. I resented being left at an airport without consent. Isn't it true that you're jealous of your sister's successful life? No. Your Honor, I have testimony from the defendant's family members that Mr. Blank, Bedford, has always been troubled, that he makes up stories for attention, that he's vindictive toward family members who are more successful than him. Frank jumped to his feet. Objection. Counsel is testifying instead of questioning the witness. Sustained, Judge Torres said. Mr. Klein, ask questions, don't make speeches. Klein glared at me. Did you or did you not call Daniel Brooks immediately after your family left? I did. Without consulting your sister first? My sister was unreachable. She had blocked my number. So you took it upon yourself to involve her ex-husband in what was, according to her, a simple miscommunication? It wasn't a miscommunication. It was abandonment. That's your interpretation. That's what the video footage shows. Judge Torres intervened. Mr. Klein, move on. But the damage was being done. Klein called my mother to the stand. Patricia testified that I had always been a difficult child, prone to exaggeration and attention-seeking behavior. She claimed the airport incident was meant as a light-hearted lesson, and that I had twisted it into something sinister. We were planning to return for Sophie the very next day, Patricia said, looking at the judge with tears in her eyes. Bedford completely overreacted and involved Daniel, who has been abusive toward our family. It was a lie, all of it. But she said it under oath, and she said it convincingly. My father testified next, claiming I had anger issues. Troy testified that I had threatened him. All lies, all coordinated, all designed to destroy my credibility. Then Frank stood and cross-examined my mother. Mrs. Patricia, you said you planned to return for Sophie the next day. Where were you planning to return from? From our vacation in Hawaii. And where was Bedford supposed to be during this vacation? Well, with us, originally. So you left him behind? It was part of the lesson. You left your son at an airport, took his luggage to Hawaii, blocked his phone number, posted mocking messages on social media. All as a lesson? Patricia's face tightened. When you put it that way, it sounds worse than it was. It sounds exactly like what it was. Frank produced printed screenshots of the social media posts. These don't look like innocent jokes. These look like mockery. Patricia had no good answer. Frank played the airport footage again, this time with timestamps. According to this footage, your family walked past Sophie in Bedford at 1:15 p.m. Your flight departed at 1:45 p.m. During those 30 minutes, Did anyone in your family attempt to contact Bedford? I don't recall. The phone records show no outgoing calls from any family member to Bedford's number during that window. In fact, the records show you all blocked him hours before arriving at the airport. Patricia squirmed. I don't remember the exact timing, but you do remember this was all a joke? Yes. A joke that involved leaving a 6-year-old without her asthma medication? Patricia went pale. She has a spare. Where? In Hawaii with you? That doesn't help her at the airport. Judge Torres had seen enough. She called a recess. When we returned 15 minutes later, she looked furious. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today, she said. The video footage is clear. This was not a miscommunication or a joke. This was a deliberate abandonment of a minor child. The testimony from family members attempting to discredit Mr. Bedford is contradicted by objective evidence. I'm deeply troubled by what appears to be false testimony given under oath in my courtroom. Rachel's lawyer tried to interrupt. Judge Torres silenced him with a look. However, I cannot make a final ruling on custody modification today. This hearing will continue next Monday at 9 a.m. In the meantime, I'm ordering a home study of both parents and appointing a guardian ad litem for Sophie. This court is adjourned. We left the courthouse. Daniel was hopeful but worried. The judge saw through their lies, he said. That's good, but I felt hollow. My entire family had just testified against me under oath. They had lied to a judge to protect Rachel and destroy me. There was no going back from this. That evening, I received an envelope at my apartment. Inside was a letter from Rachel's lawyer formally threatening to sue me for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress unless I recanted my testimony within 48 hours. I called Frank. He told me to ignore it. Empty threats, he said. They're desperate, but they didn't feel empty to me. The next few days became a waking nightmare. It started Tuesday morning, when I checked my social media and found that Aunt Linda had posted a long message calling me a traitor and a family destroyer. She detailed how I had betrayed Rachel in her time of need and sided with an abuser instead of my own blood. The post had 73 comments, all from relatives and family friends. Every single one condemned me. My cousin Andrew wrote, "Always knew Bedford was jealous of Rachel." My cousin Sarah added, "He's trying to take Sophie away because he can't have kids of his own." That wasn't even true. I was 28 years old and had simply chosen not to have children yet. I was tagged in the post. Notifications flooded my phone. Messages from people I had known my entire life. People who had been at my birthday parties and graduation, all telling me what a terrible person I was. My best friend Jake called that afternoon. "Bedford, what is going on? Your mom called me. She's saying you're having some kind of breakdown and that you need an intervention." Jake, I'm not having a breakdown. My family abandoned Sophie at the airport, and I testified about it in court. Now they're retaliating. Your mom made it sound like you're the one who did something wrong. She said you're claiming they abandoned Sophie as an excuse to hurt Rachel. That's not what happened. There's video footage, Jake. Security cameras caught the whole thing. There was a pause. Why would your mom lie to me? Because they're trying to make me look unstable, so no one believes my testimony. That's really messed up, man. I know. Do you need anything? Someone to talk to? Just for people to believe me. I believe you, Jake said, and I felt a small crack of light in the darkness. Wednesday brought worse news. My landlord, Mr. Peters, knocked on my door that evening. He looked uncomfortable. "Bedford, I received a concerning phone call today from a woman claiming to be your mother." My stomach dropped. "What did she say?" "She said you've been having violent outbursts, and that I should be aware you might be dangerous to other tenants. She suggested I ask you to move out for everyone's safety." "Mr. Peters, that's completely false. I've lived here for 3 years. Have I ever caused any problems?" "No, you've been a model tenant. That's why I'm talking to you instead of acting on her claims. But I need to know what's happening." I explained the situation for what felt like the 100th time. Mr. Peters listened and nodded. "I figured it was something like that. Family disputes can get ugly. But Bedford, if your family is willing to contact your landlord with false accusations, this could become a bigger problem. I'm not asking you to move out, but I need you to be aware. After he left, I sat on my couch feeling violated. My family was systematically calling everyone in my life, spreading lies, trying to isolate me. Thursday morning, I went to my car and found 2 slashed tires. Both rear tires had been cut with something sharp. I called the police and filed a report. The officer who responded was sympathetic but realistic. Do you have any proof of who did this? No, but my family has been harassing me. I think it was my brother. Without evidence, there's not much we can do. I'll file the report. Check if there are any security cameras in the area. There weren't. I paid $270 to replace both tires. Friday brought the knockout punch. I was sitting at my desk trying to focus on work when Gerald called me into his office again. His expression was grim. Bedford, we have a problem. There are reviews appearing online about our company, and they mention you specifically. He turned his computer screen toward me. Someone had posted on 3 different review sites, claiming I had been inappropriate with coworkers, that I created a hostile work environment, that I was unstable and aggressive. The reviews were written by different names, but they all targeted me specifically. These are fake, I said immediately. My family is doing this to destroy my reputation. I believe you, Gerald said. But HR doesn't know that. They see reviews mentioning an employee by name with serious allegations. They're requiring me to put you on temporary leave until this is investigated. Temporary leave? Gerald, I didn't do anything wrong. I know. But my hands are tied. Take a week off. Paid. Let me handle HR and get these reviews investigated. We'll track the IP addresses and prove they're fake. I left work that afternoon carrying my laptop and a box of personal items, feeling like a criminal. My career, something I had worked so hard to build, was being dismantled by lies. That evening, Daniel called. His voice was tense. Bedford, Rachel filed a complaint with the police. She's claiming that you and I conspired to kidnap Sophie. What? That's insane. A detective called me today. Detective Harris. He wants to interview both of us. I already spoke to my lawyer. We're going to cooperate fully because we have nothing to hide. But this is serious. Rachel is escalating. Why would she file a false police report? Because she's desperate. The custody hearing is Monday. If she can get us arrested before then, even if the charges are dropped later, it damages our credibility. I met with Detective Harris Saturday morning at the police station. He was a middle-aged man with tired eyes who looked like he had seen too many family disputes. Mr. Bedford, I need you to walk me through what happened last Friday at the airport. I told him everything, calmly and factually. I showed him Frank's copies of the security footage, the note, the social media posts. The detective watched and took notes. This doesn't look like a kidnapping, he said. This looks like you protected your niece after she was abandoned. That's exactly what happened. Your sister claims you had no right to call her ex-husband. She says it was interference with custody arrangements. She had blocked my number. She was unreachable. What was I supposed to do? Leave Sophie alone at the airport? Detective Harris sighed. Between you and me, this looks like a nasty custody battle, not a crime. But I have to investigate because a complaint was filed. Do you have anything else that might be relevant? My family has been harassing me all week. They called my workplace, my landlord. They're spreading lies about me online. Someone slashed my tires. Do you have proof it was them? No direct proof. But the timing is suspicious. File reports for everything. Document it all. If this goes to court, that documentation matters. I left the police station feeling marginally better. At least the detective seemed to see through Rachel's lies. Sunday evening, I received a notification on my phone. Rachel had filed for a restraining order against me. The hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning. I called Frank immediately. They're not messing around, Frank said after I explained. A restraining order hearing, if granted, would destroy your credibility in the custody case. You'd be portrayed as dangerous. I need to see the filing. He called me back an hour later, and his voice was worried. Bedford, this is bad. Rachel is claiming you sent her threatening text messages, that you appeared at her house uninvited, and that Sophie is terrified of you. She's asking for a no-contact order. None of that is true. I've never threatened her. I haven't been to her house. Sophie hugged me goodbye at the airport. I know, but she submitted what appear to be screenshots of text messages from your number. They contain threatening language. I never sent those messages. Someone faked them. That's what we'll argue. But we need to prove it quickly. The hearing is in 2 days. I looked at the alleged screenshots Frank emailed me. The messages were vile, threatening harm to Rachel and Sophie. They were supposedly from my phone number, but I had never written those words. Never even thought them. Someone had spoofed my number or fabricated the screenshots entirely. My family was framing me for threats I never made. That night, I lay awake, thinking about how my entire life had been destroyed in less than a week. My family had turned on me completely. My job was in jeopardy. My reputation was in tatters. I was facing potential criminal charges and restraining orders, all based on lies. But I had done the right thing. I had protected Sophie. Whatever happened to me, she was safe with Daniel. I had to hold on to that. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray. The restraining order hearing was at 9. Frank met me outside the courthouse, his expression serious. Remember what I told you. Stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't let them provoke you. I'll try. Don't try. Do. Inside the courtroom, Rachel sat with Thomas Klein. She looked like she hadn't slept, her eyes red and puffy. When she saw me, genuine fear crossed her face. An Academy Award-worthy performance. Judge Robert Simmons entered. He was older than Judge Torres, probably in his 60s, with gray hair and a stern expression. The bailiff called the case. Klein stood and began his presentation. He described me as a dangerous individual who had become obsessed with destroying Rachel's life. He played recordings of voicemails I had supposedly left, though I had never called Rachel after that first day. He showed the fabricated text messages. Your Honor, my client lives in fear. She's afraid for herself and for her daughter. Mr. Bedford has made it clear he intends to take Sophie away by any means necessary. We're asking for a full no-contact order. Then Rachel took the stand. She cried as she described how scared she was of me. She claimed I had always been volatile, that the family had tried to help me over the years, but I refused treatment. She said Sophie had nightmares about me now. He threatened to kill me if I didn't give up custody, Rachel sobbed. He said he'd make me pay for ruining his vacation. It was a complete fabrication, every word. But she was convincing. My mother Patricia testified next, echoing Rachel's claims. She described me as an angry child who grew into an angry man, someone who needed psychiatric help but refused it. I'm terrified for my daughter's safety, Patricia said, looking at the judge with pleading eyes. Troy testified that I had physically threatened him, that he feared for his own safety. Another lie. Then Frank stood to cross-examine. Miss Rachel, you claim my client sent you threatening messages. Did you report these to the police when you received them? I was too scared. But you weren't too scared to continue posting on social media about the custody case. That's different. Is it? You posted 3 times in the past week about how Bedford was trying to destroy your family. That doesn't sound like someone in fear. That sounds like someone on the attack. Rachel's tears dried up slightly. I was warning others. Frank pulled out his phone. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence. These are social media posts from the defendant's account, posted on the same days she claims she was in fear for her life. In this one, she's at a restaurant with friends, smiling. In this one, she's at a yoga class. In this one, she's shopping. None of these show someone living in terror. Judge Simmons looked at the photos. Continue. Furthermore, the text messages supposedly from my client show irregularities. The phone number matches, But the metadata doesn't. These messages were sent from an application that allows users to spoof phone numbers. Klein objected. Your Honor, that's pure speculation. It's forensic analysis, Frank corrected. I've had a technical expert examine the screenshots. They've been manipulated. Rachel's face went white. Frank called me to the stand. I testified truthfully about everything. I explained I had never sent threatening messages, never gone to Rachel's house, never done anything to warrant fear. I remained calm, despite Klein's aggressive cross-examination. Then Frank surprised everyone. He submitted Sophie's phone records. The phone Rachel had given her 6-year-old daughter. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a recording. This is a call Sophie made to my client 5 days ago. Judge Simmons allowed it. The courtroom listened as Sophie's small voice came through the speakers, crying, saying Mommy was scary, asking about Daddy and Uncle Bedford, saying she heard Mommy talking about getting rid of Bedford for good and making sure he goes to jail. Rachel jumped from her seat. He coached her to say that. He manipulated my daughter. Order! Judge Simmons banged his gavel. Sit down, Miss Rachel. Frank continued. Your Honor, this recording shows not only that Sophie is not afraid of my client, but that the defendant has been discussing her plans to have him arrested in front of her young daughter. This is evidence of a coordinated effort to fabricate charges. The hearing continued for another hour. Both sides presented more evidence. But the damage to Rachel's case was done. That recording of Sophie had been devastating. Judge Simmons finally spoke. I'll be reviewing all evidence presented today before making my ruling. This hearing is continued until Friday at 10 a.m. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary order. Mr. Bedford is to maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Miss Rachel, unless in a courtroom setting. No contact via phone, email, or social media. Both parties are to refrain from discussing this case publicly. Court is adjourned. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a loss either. Frank seemed cautiously optimistic. The judge clearly has doubts about Rachel's claims. That recording was huge. But we need more evidence. Outside the courthouse, Troy was waiting. He rushed toward me as I exited, his face twisted with rage. You ruined everything, he shouted, shoving me hard in the chest. I stumbled back but didn't retaliate. Frank grabbed my arm, holding me back. A bystander pulled out a phone and started recording. You destroyed our family. Troy shoved me again. Walk away, Frank said firmly. Don't engage. I did. I walked toward Frank's car with Troy shouting behind me. But the damage was done. That bystander had filmed Troy attacking me. Troy would later claim I had attacked him, just like he had lied about everything else. The next few days blurred together. My apartment manager approached me Wednesday afternoon, saying he had received noise complaints about me from neighbors. I barely made any noise. I spent most of my time in silence, working remotely on my laptop. The complaints were false, orchestrated by my family. I'm not asking you to move out, the manager said. But I have to document these complaints. Thursday, my car insurance company called. They were canceling my policy effective immediately due to a report that I had received a DUI. I had never been arrested for DUI, never even been pulled over for suspected drunk driving. Someone had called them with false information. It took 3 hours on the phone, but I eventually straightened it out. Still, the stress was crushing. Thursday evening, my bank called about suspicious activity on my account. Someone had attempted to access my online banking using my credentials. They had entered the wrong password multiple times, triggering security protocols. My family knew my old passwords. We had shared accounts when I was younger. They were trying to access my money. I changed all my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication on everything, and froze my credit. I was under siege. Daniel called Friday morning before the restraining order ruling. Bedford, I need to warn you. Rachel's lawyer filed another motion. They're trying to have you charged with conspiracy to commit parental kidnapping. On what basis? They're claiming you and I planned to take Sophie away from Rachel. It's absurd, but the prosecutor might pursue it to avoid looking soft on child safety issues. This is never going to end, is it? Not until we win. But we will win. The truth is on our side. At 10 a.m., Judge Simmons delivered his ruling on the restraining order. He denied it entirely. The fabricated evidence, Sophie's phone call, and the social media posts showing Rachel living normally had convinced him the fear was not genuine. This court finds insufficient credible evidence to support a restraining order, he said. The application is denied. Rachel screamed. Actual screaming in the courtroom. Bailiffs had to escort her out. Outside, Frank pulled me aside. This is good. Very good. But Rachel won't stop. She's cornered now. And cornered animals are dangerous. He was right. That afternoon, Rachel's lawyer sent notice of intent to file criminal charges against me for conspiracy, interference with custody, and intimidation of a witness. I sat in my apartment that evening, looking at the legal bills piling up, $12,000 so far. My savings were evaporating. My career was on hold. My family had become my enemy. Everything I had built was crumbling. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Uncle Bedford? Sophie's whisper was barely audible. Sophie? Are you okay? I'm scared. Mommy is yelling a lot. She threw a glass and it broke. Grandma is here and they're fighting about you. Where are you right now? In my room. I took Mommy's phone when she wasn't looking. You're very brave. Is your daddy coming to get you? Not until Sunday. That's 2 more days. My heart broke. Sophie, can you hear what they're saying? They're talking really loud. Mommy said something about getting rid of you for good and making sure you go to jail. She said Grandma needs to help her fix this. Sophie, I need you to be very careful. Don't let them know you called me, okay? Okay. Uncle Bedford? Did I do something wrong? Is this my fault? No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. You're perfect. You're the only good thing about all of this. She started crying softly. I want to live with Daddy all the time. I don't like being with Mommy when she's scary. We're working on that. The judge is going to decide what's best for you. Will I still see you? Always. I promise. She had to hang up when she heard Rachel approaching. I immediately called Frank and sent him the recording. This is gold, Frank said. But using a child's testimony is complicated. We need more. What more could we possibly need? Something that proves Rachel's intent beyond any doubt. Something that shows this whole thing was orchestrated from the start. Like what? I don't know yet. But I'm going to find it. Friday evening, I made a decision. I was done playing defense. I called a private investigator, Marcus Shaw, whose name Frank had mentioned once. He agreed to meet me Saturday morning. Marcus was a former police detective, now in his 50s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. His office was cluttered with files and computer equipment. Tell me everything, he said. I spent 2 hours explaining the situation from the beginning. The airport abandonment, the family's coordinated lies, the fabricated evidence, Sophie's calls. Marcus took notes and nodded. Your family is running a coordinated campaign of harassment and defamation. But here's what I'm hearing between the lines. They're desperate. People don't go to these lengths unless they're hiding something bigger. What could be bigger than child abandonment and perjury? That's what I'm going to find out. Give me 3 days. His retainer was $3,000. Between Marcus and Frank, I was burning through my savings at an alarming rate. But I had no choice. Meanwhile, Frank filed aggressive countermotions. He submitted evidence of Rachel's lies to the court. He included Sophie's phone calls, the security footage, the social media posts, and witness statements from airport employees who remembered seeing my family acting suspicious before boarding. Rachel's lawyer, Thomas Klein, fought back. He filed a complaint with the State Bar Association against Frank, claiming unethical conduct. The complaint was baseless, designed to slow everything down and put Frank on defense. Sunday afternoon, Marcus called. I've got something. Can you come to my office? I drove there immediately. Marcus had printouts spread across his desk. Your family has been planning this for months, he said. I found email exchanges between Rachel and your mother, Patricia. They go back to early April. He showed me emails discussing how I was getting in the way of Rachel's plans, how I kept refusing to babysit, how they needed to teach me a lesson about family responsibility. The emails talked about the Hawaii trip specifically, about leaving me behind with Sophie as punishment. This proves premeditation, I said. It gets better. I found Rachel's financial records. She's been embezzling from your family trust fund. I stared at him. What trust fund? You don't know? Your grandmother left a trust worth about $200,000 when she died 6 years ago. It was supposed to be split among all grandchildren. You, Rachel, Troy, and your 2 cousins. I never received anything from a trust. Because Rachel has been the trustee, she's been taking money out for administrative expenses that don't exist. Over the past 6 years, she's siphoned off nearly $90,000. Your mother, Patricia, knew about it. I found emails where Patricia advised Rachel on how to hide the transfers. My mind reeled. They've been stealing from all of us? Yes. And I suspect this is the real reason they wanted you discredited. If you started looking into the trust, you'd discover the embezzlement. By destroying your credibility, they ensure no one believes you if you make accusations. Does Troy know? I don't think so. The emails suggest they've been keeping him in the dark, too. This changed everything. Rachel and Patricia weren't just trying to win a custody battle. They were trying to cover up financial fraud. We need to report this to the police and to probate court, I said. Agreed. But there's a complication. Rachel's lawyer just filed an emergency motion. They're claiming you're harassing witnesses and demanding you be jailed for contempt. The hearing is Monday morning. Frank called me an hour later with the same information. Bedford, they're going for broke. If the judge jails you for contempt, even temporarily, your testimony becomes worthless. You'll look like a criminal. We need to bring the embezzlement evidence to court Monday and blow this whole thing wide open. Sunday night, I barely slept. Monday would be the final battle. Everything depended on what happened in that courtroom. Monday morning, the courthouse was packed. Somehow word had spread that this case was explosive. Frank carried a thick folder of evidence. Marcus came as a witness. Daniel sat in the gallery with his lawyer. Sophie wasn't there, she was too young for this, but her recorded calls were ready to be played. Judge Torres, who had handled the initial custody hearing, was presiding. She looked stern as she called the court to order. We're here on an emergency motion filed by Miss Rachel's attorney, claiming Mr. Bedford has engaged in witness harassment and intimidation. Mr. Klein, present your evidence. Thomas Klein stood and launched into a dramatic speech about how I had been contacting family members, threatening them, trying to coerce them into changing their testimony. He presented affidavits from Patricia and Troy, claiming I had left threatening voicemails. It was all lies. I had followed Frank's advice and not contacted any of them. Then Frank stood. Your Honor, every claim in that motion is false. But more importantly, I have evidence that Miss Rachel and Mrs. Patricia have been engaged in a criminal conspiracy that goes far beyond this custody case. Klein objected. Your Honor, this is irrelevant to the matter at hand. I'll decide what's relevant, Judge Torres said. Mr. Morrison, proceed. Frank methodically presented everything. The emails planning the airport abandonment, the social media posts mocking me, the fabricated text messages, Sophie's recorded phone calls, the airport security footage, witness statements. Rachel's face grew paler with each piece of evidence. Then Frank dropped the bomb. Your Honor, I'd like to call Marcus Shaw, a licensed private investigator, to testify about financial fraud he uncovered during his investigation. Marcus took the stand and explained the trust fund embezzlement. He had bank records, emails, transfer receipts, $90,000 stolen over 6 years. The courtroom erupted. Troy jumped from his seat, shouting, What? What trust fund? Judge Torres banged her gavel. Order! Patricia tried to leave. The bailiff stopped her at Judge Torres's command. Frank continued. Your Honor, this entire campaign against my client was designed to prevent him from discovering this embezzlement. By destroying his credibility in a custody case, they ensured no one would believe him if he accused them of financial fraud. They weaponized the court system for personal gain and to cover up crimes. Klein was speechless. He tried to object, to argue, but he had nothing. The evidence was overwhelming. Judge Torres's face was thunderous. I have seen some disgraceful behavior in my courtroom before, but this surpasses anything in my 23-year career. Miss Rachel, Mrs. Patricia, I am referring both of you to the prosecutor's office for investigation into perjury, fraud, and abuse of the court system. Rachel burst into tears. Real ones this time. Furthermore, Judge Torres continued, I am dismissing all motions filed by Miss Rachel with prejudice. The restraining order application is permanently denied. The custody modification case will proceed, but I am granting Mr. Daniel Brooks temporary full custody, effective immediately, pending further evaluation. She turned to me. Mr. Bedford, I apologize that you were subjected to this abuse of the legal system. Your testimony has been credible and corroborated throughout these proceedings. I am ordering Miss Rachel to pay your legal fees in full. The gavel banged. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Troy approached me cautiously. His face showed shock and betrayal. Bedford, I had no idea about the trust fund, about what Mom and Rachel were doing. I believed their lies about you. I'm sorry. I looked at my brother. He had testified against me, threatened me, but he had been manipulated too. I know, I said. They lied to all of us. Daniel walked up and hugged me, tears in his eyes. You saved my daughter. I can never repay you. You don't have to. A social worker brought Sophie out. When she saw Daniel and me, she ran to us, her face lighting up. Daddy, Uncle Bedford. She hugged us both tight. Are you still fighting? No, sweetheart, Daniel said. The fighting is over. You're going to live with Daddy now. And I can still see Uncle Bedford? Anytime you want. Sophie looked up at me with those big brown eyes. Thank you for telling the truth, Uncle Bedford. Mommy said lying is bad, but then she did a lot of lying. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I said gently. But everything is going to be okay now. And somehow, despite everything, I believed it. The week after the final hearing passed in a strange calm. For the first time in over a month, my phone wasn't exploding with threats and accusations. The silence felt strange. The prosecutor's office moved quickly. Within 3 days, formal charges were filed against Rachel and Patricia for multiple counts of perjury, fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. They were each facing potential prison time, though their lawyers immediately began negotiating plea deals. The probate court ordered a forensic audit of grandmother's trust fund. The auditors found that Rachel had stolen $183,000 over 6 years. She and Patricia had hidden the transfers through fake administrative expenses, claiming costs that never existed. My share of the trust was $45,700. Troy received the same. Our 2 cousins, who lived out of state and had no idea any of this was happening, each received their shares too. The money couldn't erase what had happened, but it helped cover the legal fees and replaced what I had lost fighting this battle. Rachel and Patricia eventually accepted plea deals. They received 5 years probation each, were ordered to pay full restitution plus penalties, and had to perform 300 hours of community service. They avoided prison, but their reputations were destroyed. Rachel lost primary custody of Sophie. After a thorough home study and psychological evaluation, the court awarded Daniel primary custody with Rachel receiving only supervised visitation every other Saturday for 4 hours. The supervisor was required because Sophie had expressed fear of being alone with her mother. My job situation resolved itself in an unexpected way. Gerald, my boss, had IT investigate the fake reviews targeting me. They traced them back to Patricia's home IP address and 2 accounts Troy had created. The evidence was clear. The company released a statement clarifying that the reviews were fake and part of a harassment campaign. They threatened legal action against the review sites until the posts were removed. Gerald called me into his office 2 weeks after the final hearing. "Bedford, I owe you an apology. I should have trusted you more from the beginning. You had to protect the company. I understand. Still, you showed incredible integrity through all of this. You stood up for what was right, even when it cost you everything. That's the kind of character we need in leadership positions. I'm promoting you to senior project manager with a 20% salary increase." I accepted, feeling vindicated. My extended family fell into 2 camps. Some, like Aunt Linda, doubled down and refused to admit they had been wrong. They quietly deleted their social media posts attacking me and pretended nothing had happened. Others, including 2 cousins, reached out to apologize. They had believed Patricia's lies and felt terrible about it. I accepted some apologies but maintained firm boundaries. Trust, once broken so completely, couldn't be easily rebuilt. Troy and I had several long conversations over coffee. He was genuinely remorseful. He had been manipulated by Patricia and Rachel his whole life, just like I had been. The difference was, he had chosen to believe their version of events without questioning. "I should have known better," he said during one of our meetings. "I should have asked for your side before testifying against you." "You should have," I agreed. "But I understand why you didn't. They're very good at manipulation." "I'm moving to Colorado," Troy told me. "Getting away from Mom and Rachel. Starting fresh. I can't be around people who would do what they did." I respected that decision. My friendship with Jake grew stronger through all this. He had been one of the few people who believed me immediately, who didn't need to see evidence before trusting my word. That loyalty meant more to me than he probably realized. The biggest change was my relationship with Daniel and Sophie. Daniel and I became genuine friends. We grabbed dinner every few weeks, went to baseball games, talked about life. He was dating a woman named Emily, who taught 3rd grade at Sophie's school. She was kind and patient, wonderful with Sophie. Sophie thrived with Daniel. She joined soccer, made new friends, smiled more. The stress and fear disappeared from her face. Every Sunday, Daniel brought her to my apartment for Uncle Bedford time. We played board games, made cookies, watched movies. Those afternoons became my favorite part of every week. One Sunday, about 6 months after the courthouse victory, Sophie and I were making chocolate chip cookies when she asked, "Uncle Bedford, why did Mommy tell so many lies?" I chose my words carefully. Sometimes people make bad choices when they're scared of getting in trouble. Your mommy was scared, so she made very bad choices. But lying is worse than getting in trouble. You're right, it is. I'm glad you told the truth, even though it was hard. Me too, sweetheart. She hugged me, getting flour on my shirt. I didn't care. 6 months became a year. Rachel completed her probation requirements and stayed out of my life. She had limited contact with Sophie, and Sophie was okay with that. Patricia moved to Florida to live with her sister, leaving Troy and me behind without a word. We were both relieved. My career continued to advance. 18 months after the promotion to senior project manager, I was offered a director position. The raise was substantial, the responsibility exciting. I accepted. I started dating again, something I hadn't thought about during the chaos. A woman named Jenna, who worked in marketing at a partner company. She was smart, funny, and had no drama in her life, which I appreciated more than she knew. 2 years after the airport incident, Daniel called with big news. "Bedford, Emily and I are getting married." "That's amazing. Congratulations. And we want you to be a groomsman. You saved my relationship with Sophie. Without you, I might never have gotten her back. You'll always be family to us." I stood in that wedding as Daniel married Emily. Sophie was the flower girl, beaming in her white dress. During the reception, Sophie dragged me onto the dance floor, and we spun around while she giggled. Looking around that reception hall, surrounded by Daniel's family and real friends, I realized something. The people in this room cared about me not because of blood relation or obligation, but because of who I actually was. They valued integrity, honesty, kindness, My biological family had been held together by manipulation, guilt, and obligation. When tested, it had fallen apart because there was no real foundation. But this new family, built on mutual respect and genuine affection, was stronger than blood ever was. 3 years after that day, at Gate 43, I sat at a playground, watching Sophie play with Daniel and Emily's new baby, her little brother Nathan. Sophie was 9 now, confident and happy. She ran over to me with dandelions she had picked. "Make a wish, Uncle Bedford." I looked at this little girl who had been abandoned at an airport and had become the catalyst for the most difficult period of my life. She had also been the reason I discovered my own strength, my own values, my own worth. I had everything I needed right here. A career I was proud of, friends who valued me, a brother in Troy who was rebuilding his life, a chosen family in Daniel, Emily, Sophie, and baby Nathan. Peace of mind, knowing I had done the right thing, even when it cost me everything. "I don't need to wish for anything," I told Sophie. "I have everything I want right here." She smiled and ran back to play. I thought about that day at the airport often. The moment I saw that plane taxi away without me. The crumpled note in my hand. Sophie crying and asking where her mother went. If someone had told me then that this nightmare would lead to the best thing that ever happened to me, I wouldn't have believed them. But it was true. Sometimes the worst moments in our lives crack us open just enough to let light in. Sometimes losing toxic family members makes room for people who actually deserve our love. Sometimes standing alone for what's right teaches us that we're stronger than we ever imagined. The experience taught me that family isn't determined by blood or last names. Family is the people who show up when things are hard. The people who believe you when everyone else calls you a liar. The people who stand beside you when standing beside you costs them something. I learned that integrity isn't about what you do when people are watching. It's about what you do when no one would blame you for walking away. It's about protecting someone who can't protect themselves, even when it destroys everything you've built. Most importantly, I learned that you can survive losing everything and come out stronger on the other side. You can be called every name, threatened, attacked, and still hold on to your truth. You can watch your entire world collapse and build something better from the rubble. That day at Gate 43, my family ruined my vacation by leaving me with Sophie. But they also gave me an unexpected gift. They showed me exactly who they were. They forced me to choose between comfortable lies and uncomfortable truth. And in making that choice, I found myself. As I sat there watching Sophie play, I realized the airport wasn't where my story began. It was where my real life started. Everything before that had been a rehearsal. Everything after was authentic. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up for what's right, even when it meant losing relationships you thought were important? Have you ever discovered that the people you thought were family weren't the ones who truly had your back? What would you have done in my situation at that airport? Leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts and experiences. If this story moved you or made you think about your own family dynamics, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future stories. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that sometimes doing the right thing means losing the wrong people. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that your integrity is worth more than anyone's approval, and that real family is built on loyalty and truth, not obligation and lies. Take care of yourselves, and remember that standing alone for what's right is better than standing with a crowd that's wrong.